What makes work beautiful? It's the first hellos and last goodbyes. It's knowing when to make eye contact and when not to. When your favorite people aren't just at home. It's when one journey ends, a new one begins. It's when leaders want to be learners. And when the people you hire become people you admire. We believe with expert craft and passionate care, work can be beautiful. LHH, a beautiful working world.
All right, thank you for joining us for today's conversation, HR at the Helm, Leading Through Disruption in 2025. My name is Kate Genser. I'm on the marketing team here at LHH. Before we dive in, let's cover a couple of quick housekeeping items. Our lines are on mute and will remain on mute for the duration of our presentation. However, we have the Q&A box open, so please submit questions as we're going through it. And we did get some questions in advance that we tried to work in. If we don't get to your question today, we will follow up with you afterward, provided you don't check that anonymous button, because then we won't know. This session is being recorded. We will send out the replay and the slides to all registrants. And we're also going to send out links to all of the research, so you don't need to take notes. This will all be sent as follow-up communication after the call. So without further ado, my colleague Russell Williams will be leading us today. So let me turn it over to him to get us started.
Thank you, Kate. Good afternoon and welcome. We have an exceptional group of attendees and leaders from across the US, Canada, and abroad. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to start by introducing myself in our LHH panel today. So my name, as Kate said, is Russell Williams. I lead the Career Transition Mobility practice for North America. I've been with LHH for 24 years. I have the distinct pleasure and honor of moderating our discussion today. So thank you, Isa.
Thank you, Russell. My name is Isabella Kazagerova, and I'm delighted to join you all today from London. I'm looking after a product and innovation in our career transition and mobility business. Melanie?
Hi, everybody. Delighted to be here as well. I am the Career Development and Mobility Practice Leader for North America. Greg?
Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Simpson, and I am the Global Career Transition Practice Leader for LHH.
So on behalf of all of us at LHH, I want to begin by saying something simple but very meaningful. HR, you out there, you are our community. You're the ones holding the teams together. You're the ones guiding people through change and keeping organizations moving, often without pause and often without enough support. We hear what you're going through, we see you, and we know the weight you carry right now. And that's why we're here today. This isn't just about another webinar. This is a moment for all of you, for all of us, to take a breath, reflect, and reconnect with what matters most. This should be a chance to hear from LHH leaders who've been in conversation with HR and business leaders across industries, leaders navigating the same disruption that you're facing. So we're going to share with what we're seeing, what we're learning, and some practical ways to lead your workforce through this environment with both empathy and clarity. And because you showed up today, we've actually have something special for you exclusively who attended today. That's my little teaser for the end. So I have a real offering from us to you. So more on that later. So let's take a moment to ground us in who LHH is, especially for those of you who are newer to our community. LHH is not just a career transition partner. We're a full spectrum people strategy partner. We work with organizations at every stage of the talent lifecycle, from hiring and onboarding to leadership development to upskilling and redeployment, and yes, supporting career transitions. But what connects it all? It's a belief that people are the engine of the business success. And when you support people with care, strategy, and insight, you unlock performance at every level. What many people don't realize about LHH is we're actually part of the Adecco group. It's a global family of companies committed to building the workforce of the future. So that includes Ezra, our market-leading digital coaching platform, which helps leaders grow through flexible, human-centered coaching. General Assembly is a global leader in digital reskilling. It helps organizations close the gap on tech, AI, and data skills through cutting-edge programs. And together, we've been helping clients connect the dots across the talent strategy, so you don't have to navigate it alone. And because this isn't just about business, it's about people, and we're here to help you build that kind of future that the workforce deserves. So let's talk about where we are today. So I'm going to ground us for just a moment. We're not just talking about routine change. We're talking about a level of disruption that feels relentless. So you're not imagining it. This is it. This is different. Workforce changes are happening faster. Expectations are higher. And the support systems around HR haven't always kept up. So many of you are navigating layoffs and reorgs one week and then being asked to rebuild trust and morale the next. And yet you keep showing up. So what we're doing today is we're acknowledging that, right? That you're not alone. We're in this together, and you're not the only ones feeling stretched, questions, or pulled in 10 different directions. So let's take a closer look at what's making 2025 such a uniquely challenging moment for HR. If you felt like you're constantly reacting to instead of leading lately, this is what it feels like. 2025 is the complexity isn't just high, it's compounding. You're trying to manage restructuring and burnout, skill gaps, leadership turnover, and now AI. And what we're hearing from the field is clear. The pressure's coming from every direction. The margin of error is shrinking. And this isn't about one big disruption. It's about the ripple effect. Change in one area that triggers 3 more. And HR is expected to hold it all together. So we're going to talk about that today because these challenges are real. They're relentless, and they're redefining what leadership looks like in this moment. So Isa, I'm going to hand it over to you. You've been analyzing these trends. Can you walk us through what you're seeing in the data?
Yes, thank you, Russell. So let me share with everyone the significant changes we observe in the labor markets globally. Data on the slide comes from LHH and Adecco studies. The sources are below. And those studies cover more than 500,000 employees around the world. So it's a considerable sample size, let's put it this way. So what are we seeing? The World Economic Forum predicts that in the next 5 years, basically they say by 2030, large employers alone are going to create 170 million new jobs, but also eliminate 92 million old ones. In addition, all other jobs are also set to be significantly impacted by new technologies such as AI. So these changes are unprecedented in both the scale and the pace with which they happen. And it's not just once we go through them and we're back to normal. Actually, the most difficult part is those changes are set to continue. So we will be continuously reshaping the scope of different jobs and roles and continuously demanding new skills. Companies, to stay competitive, need to look after their workforce's skill sets and making sure that their workforce is aligned with market demands. The same is true about to all of us individuals, and what we see now in the market that more and more people are pushed to pivot to new occupations and new in-demand skills. Last year alone, you can see that out of LHH career transition candidates, 58%, it's a very high number compared to previous years, had to pivot to a completely different occupation. And when we say to a completely different occupation, we have a taxonomy of 150 job families, so it's a big change. The question then is, are people ready for those changes? And there are several data points which we can also see now in the next part of the slide, is that never failed to surprise me. The surprising piece is most people are not feeling responsible for their own careers. You can see on this chart, sort of to the left, is that only 27% of people think that educating themselves about the changing nature of work is their responsibility. If we flip that, that means 73% of people thinking that it's somebody else's responsibility. The other number is even more interesting for me. Only 39% think that making sure their own skills are relevant for the future is their responsibility. So 61% thinks it's somebody else's, like the manager, employer, even government or civil society. This is interesting. For us, this tells us that people feel overwhelmed. People very often do not know how to start. And what we hear from our career consultants and career coaches is that very often people do not have the right mindset for pivoting or even just staying employable. They don't have personalized tools and insights to take charge of their careers. You can also see that there's an expectation from everybody. I actually think it was 76% of people who said, we expect companies to retrain existing workforce before hiring externally. This is not what's happening, because if you look at the left-hand side of the slide, what we see happening is many companies still lay off outdated skill sets and recruit externally for in-demand skills. This is not working at this pace, and this is not easy. And as you can see, there's a big gap between what employees are expecting from their companies and what actually happening in reality. There's also interesting gap between sort of individual expectations. Out of all candidates that lost their job and came to our care last year, 78% said that the first thing they want to do, their key career goal, is to find a similar job, similar to what they have just lost. So very often people waste time trying to find something in the market that doesn't exist anymore, just because it's so difficult to pivot to new occupations. And you can see 58% of them actually ended up pivoting. What does it mean for us in HR? So for us in HR, this situation creates a treble challenge. Number one is obviously you help organizational needs when it comes to talent, and you're there to support your senior leaders in that respect. At the same time, you also need to support people. And you can see that psychological contract that people are used to is now being broken. So it's becoming increasingly difficult. And then the third point here is very important as well. You need to navigate your own uncertainties and career complexities in the HR world. And if I use this metaphor from airline industry, putting on your mask before helping others, this is becoming needed as ever for HR community to start caring about yourselves before you help everybody else with the challenges outlined on this slide. So Kate, next we actually would like this. Oh, sorry. With that, I think I'll hand over back to Russell to talk us through some of the numbers we heard.
Yeah, so thank you, Izza. So because we understand the speed of change, we did a recent pulse checks. We wanted to check. We asked the questions and pulse the HR community. This just in the last 2 weeks. So we thought we would bring this forward as well. But we said, okay, if you look at the last 3 months and you take the last 3 months into consideration, to what extent have each one of the following been challenging issues in your role? And so this was over 300 HR leaders in the last 2 weeks. And you see here, the number one concern is employee morale. Right now, aligning skills for the future remains a challenge. HR is burned out. Strategic workforce planning is a problem. So panelists, I'm gonna flip it to you. Does this resonate with what you're hearing and seeing as you speak to clients out there?
Russell, I'll speak up here. I would say absolutely. I think what we're doing here is when we look at this type of a study that's taking really more in current real time, this isn't just a moment of change. This is really a moment of reckoning. Morale is low, not because employees are fragile. It's because employees are human. And what we're seeing is that what's been lost in many cases really aren't just jobs or programs, but it's been a loss of a shared sense of meaning. So rebuilding is really going to be not just so much as a strategy, it's going to be built on a lot of sincerity, right? It's not going to be just a policy, it's going to be really being present. So the data we're seeing, this type of study, we've been witnessing for the last several years. Increasingly, employees are navigating in more uncharted waters. They're less prepared to deal with uncertainty and change. So today's disruption, I believe what we're seeing is really is what has been building and festering for some time now as the shifts that have been going on, as Isabella was just mentioning. Melanie, what would you say?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. This absolutely resonates as well when a restructuring takes place. You know, one of the key areas to focus on is how you connect with your people during this time. How do you demonstrate they're still valued? How often do you communicate with them? What resources do you provide during this uncertain time? All of this ties together. And remember, key thing is this applies to both those being impacted and those who are not, so those who remain. All of this plays into who you are as an organization, which is your brand. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, it resonates with me as well. I would like to make a quick comment around that need to align skills for the future. And just to say that we are looking at the skills in 3 buckets in LHH. So the skills of today, that's something that is really required for your business to stay competitive. But then there are also timeless skills that all of you in HR have been involved in developing for years, like leadership skill, interpersonal skills, communication skills, and so on. But there is also a 3rd bucket of skills that has been typically ignored or not developed. We call them meta skills, so career management skills, things like proactivity, adaptability, learning agility. So those skills are becoming more important because you really would like your people to be activated and to be proactive in aligning their own skills for the demands of your organization. So it definitely, I can see why this is one of the challenges on the chart as well. What we wanted to do now is actually to see how that resonates with all of you. And we would like also to conduct a poll that is now on the screen. So Kate, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Isa. We have a live poll, so go ahead and input what is your biggest challenge right now. I know that some folks are in conference rooms having a lunch and learn moment here. So as you're doing this, just think about where you are personally and the biggest challenges you're facing. We'll wait until we get a quorum here on our participation, and it'll be interesting because the data that Russell was referring to earlier was North American, and I know we have global participants today, so it'll be interesting if it skews the data in any other significant way. And we are getting to
That's interesting.
the spot, and I'm going to wrap it up here and share the results and then hand it over to Greg. What do you think about this? We have aligning skills, and just to be clear, we set it as 1, so we didn't allow people to pick multiple, so we can really hone in on what is the thing that you're facing right now. What do you think?
Great. This is wonderful to be able to get this information, again, more in the moment compared to our research study that was more currently done. But basically we're seeing is a real shifting landscape almost by the day. So it is not really surprising here. So, really, as we look at this from our perspective, you have to understand, we work with 500,000 individual people who go through an extremely significant shift in their career every year in every industry around the world. So we have been seeing actually this, this shift that has been appearing in their sentiments as they've been managing their careers. So and what we're seeing is the ground is shifting underneath people, really rapidly. Between the evolution of skills requirements that we've been talking about, there's uncertainty about AI. Now we have increasingly volatile economic and geopolitical climate. So employees are experiencing a real heightened sense of disruption. And what once was a pretty clear career path is now unstable and is essentially ambiguous. So the experience, that we look to be able to provide now is looking at and understanding when we look at all of this is that we're focusing on what is a need is optimism, well-being as a primary, recommendation to be able to support people because there is a longer effect to individuals' employee engagement and how they appear to your own employer brand. So a lot of this is now recognizing we need to be able to focus on the whole person here, right? what they value, what intrinsically motivates them, and where they find purpose. So what we're really seeing is kind of a human-centered insight is now becoming more of a leadership imperative. So if we really kind of take in, we've talked about the previous point that we saw, we look at like dealing with morale, dealing with a lot of what we're seeing here and the changes within your organization. Here would be some straightforward recommendation. And when you're dealing with some significant change that has been disruptive within your organization, the number one thing is name this honestly. Executive leadership should publicly and empathetically name what is changing. You cannot heal what you have not acknowledged. And then reaffirm what still matters. Okay, articulate the values that are still within the organization. People want to be reoriented to what is that sense of purpose that they've got. Empower your managers to make sure that they can lead with empathy. Also, create feedback loops that feel safe. So an opportunities to be able to provide feedback, but in a way where someone feels that it's meaningful, it's not futile, and you're going to be following up on it. Also, understand that maybe rebuilding is to co-create, not mandate, right? So the workforce culture communities, the efforts that you're going to be building in, make sure that there's that participation. And then you want to celebrate integrity over this, over perfection, really. So leading with integrity is going to be critical. Then finally is, as we've been talking about here, there's kind of a common thing that's going in is that employees has been increasingly hungry to be invested in themselves. So investing in that human development is going to be one of the critical points to be able to understand how do we move through a primary point of disruption. So those are that's would be off the top. So Melanie, what would you add to that?
Yeah, no, thanks, Greg, very much. We are seeing a lot of traction in this conversation around redeployment and internal mobility specifically. What used to be sequential, you'd do all the layoffs and then it would be followed by hiring. All of that is happening at the same time. You have one department downsizing on one side of the hallway and the other side, they're actually expanding. So this is all taking place at the same time, which is where career mobility itself really becomes much more than just a nice to have. And redeploying talent itself is actually becoming a retention strategy. This is how companies can say, we still see value in you, and we're just trying to now help you find that right fit in the new structure. When this happens, not just about saying, we want you to stay, we're saving roles, but it's also preserving morale. It's also saving your internal knowledge and your IP, and it's also empowering your employees during change. Is there anything you wanted to add on as well?
Yeah, Melanie, thank you. I would actually build on what you just said, because I looked at our poll and I can see the top ones would be aligning the skills of the future, but at the same time, organizational restructuring, and at the same time, employee morale. These three things is a picture for me saying that's okay. So as we know from other studies, companies are trying to sort of do the realigning of the skills the old way, which would be, okay, let's think what we can do with people who have outdated skill sets, potentially laying off, or trying to redeploy, but not at big numbers and not systemically, instead of thinking proactively how they can do all those things before any events occur. And what is the changing psychological contract and the promise to people? Because if the promise was you would have to career for life in our organization, was currently absolutely not fitting their reality, what is that new promise then? And in our view, what works really well is things around internal mobility that interestingly also helps this employee morale issue as well. So I would probably just second what Melanie mentioned.
Great. Thank you, Melanie. So let's continue with this theme. And, if you look at how HR teams are helping employees today, and you think about what you just heard, this tsunami is not coming from a distance, it's here. And so how are HR leaders helping their employees? How do we rebuild trust? We ask these two questions. We ask, what are your organization or past organizations implemented in times of uncertainty to manage morale? And we ask after workforce changes like layoffs or restructures, which, if any, steps has your organization taken to rebuild trust? So if you look at this and you see the recognition and feedback on the left and the wellness programs on the right, you see this whole internal communications and transparency, the need for that. Greg touched on that. And if you think about it, if morale is still low, even after these efforts, even after you've done all of these, and like what's missing, because if you look at this on the left, it's like in a crisis, but on the right, it's like after a crisis. So, Greg, what would you add? I know you have some insights on this.
Yeah, thanks, Russell, because I mean, this is, really a lot within the wheelhouse of the work that we do on a daily basis with organizations. So, again, on the left-hand side, it has been implemented, during times of uncertainty, like managing morale. So this is, from the research study. So this is the blocking and tackling, right? So yes, that in the past and into the current future, the current times, recognition and feedback is in play. Wellness programs are being put in place, looking to lean into transparent communication, and then the professional development, allied as, some sort of providing feedback, right? So these pieces are in place, and there's only less than 3% of organizations that say they really don't do anything. But we have to juxtapose this, that we still have a morale issue, right? And we're basically kind of in a bit of a higher cycle of disruption that is going on. So really what we kind of look at this is that old playbooks aren't matching the new terrain. So it's really looking to be able to understand, and some of the points that we've been making about here is like, how are you really looking strategically, from a communication standpoint? How are you looking to be able to understand how those wellness programs, and then, yes, we offer the programs, but what is the participation? How do you provide and increase that participation? And many times that has a lot to do with the cultural adaptation of the organization, right? So from a leadership perspective, how do they look to be able to provide these? It's really looking to be able to say the tools are in play, right? But what is the utilization of the tool? And I think that now when we look to be able to understand is that many of these can be very effective. And then we just have to put them in the right order to be able to match the current need that is of today. So, that's kind of looking again, kind of as what we say, what has been, used in the past, in times of uncertainty. So what about rebuilding trust, right? After all of this has happened. So Melanie, what's your point on that?
Yeah, there is a huge growing recognition that trust is not rebuilt with words alone. It's really being rebuilt with opportunity. And whether that opportunity is learning a new skill, or an opportunity to take on a gig assignment while you're in your current job, or maybe that opportunity really is a new role. After a layoff or a restructuring, employees are really watching. They're watching you, they're watching the organization to see what comes next. Do they see those who are impacted being given additional learning resources before they exit? Do they see others being developed and trying to be redeployed? Are your open roles posted internally? Is that visible? Is that transparent? Is leadership communicating anything? If so, what is it? Is it helpful? Is it helping them cope with what's going on? The organizations making the biggest impact on morale and trust are the ones who have shifted their focus to career momentum. They're using internal mobility and reskilling, just not as a workforce strategy, but they're also using this as a signal to their people. You still belong. We're investing in you. You are still an important part of this organization. And this is when people start to feel like they have a future at the company. Healing begins and engagement starts to return.
Let me build on what Melanie just said as well and look at it a little bit on a different angle. I think the secret sauce for that, which is new now, could be also activating employees themselves. And we know that currently agency is not always very high, but giving back that internal locus of control, helping people feel empowered that can actually drive their own career, including not necessarily moving to different jobs, but including things like projects that Melanie mentioned, or reskilling, upskilling opportunities, is very important. We know it has a tremendous positive impact on things like resilience, for example. And I also feel that if we look at it from the other perspective, yes, many of us are going to be pushed to pivot to new occupations and learn new skills. But we also know that currently most people are not engaged or fully engaged at work, right? So we actually have an opportunity to align better that fit of employees' expectations and strengths with different roles. So if it's done right, career pivoting can actually be a huge boost in your organization, a boost for employee experience, engagement and morale, as Greg and Melanie was saying, but also boost in productivity, because we know that right fit has a tremendous positive impact on productivity as well. So this is just something to consider, and sort of a line that we are looking with optimism in, and we also know organizations who successfully implemented something of those tactics for their workforces. So the other important piece is communication that we touched upon, but maybe not fully. So with that, I also want to hand over to Greg to talk about that specific point.
Thank you. Included in the study is that we actually wanted to make sure that we had some benchmarking measurement on effective communication, the mediums of those communications. So we asked, of all the strategies communicating a company, for communication during turbulent times, like, what's used, right? So right off, really that stands on top, real-time updates from leadership, that's, live town meetings or video messaging. What it is, that is the top of the house speaking. Now, sometimes there are not, complete clear strategies or clear answers. The point is to communicate often, communicate openly, and communicate honestly. That will always help to be able to set the best pace within the organization. Then we have just other means of communication, because a lot of you are different size organizations and different methods and how you look to be able to culturally communicate with them. But these are just, again, some benchmark sessions, or opportunities. So the Q&A sessions, forums, following a major announcement, very critical, because you want an opportunity to be able to voice back and forth. Someone needs to be able to say, this is a change for me, or I have a reaction to this, to be able to make sure that it isn't just a one-way message. Then, formal staff meetings, that has a lot to do with the message delivered, the feedback, you have that feedback mechanism, but we need to be able to continuously reinforce that type of messaging so it moves through, right? Team cascading messaging, very critical to be able to provide. And then a lot of times, social platforms within organizations are really effective, but that's extremely effective in that reinforcement of the messaging that goes through, that also could be including is feedback mechanisms in here. And then, down at the bottom is that more of this withholding with me, more of a need to know. That's less utilized in times of turbulent, right? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about more specifically from it is today. So our organization is not, absent of having to go through our own changes. And Russell Williams, who's our leader within North American side, has had to lead through a lot of the other significant changes, delivering these messages himself. So Russell, I kind of want to turn it to you.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in here. I would love to. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, something you said a while ago, Greg, it really resonated with me. You said that you can't heal what you haven't acknowledged, and I felt that. So yes, as an executive leader at LHH, I feel this pain personally. It's difficult, it's challenging. You want to over communicate, but it's never enough. And it takes courage to make yourself vulnerable, to explain to people the decisions that you're making and why. And they don't always agree with you, but people still want information. And in the absence of that, you have this vapor that people tend to fill those gaps with. That's one of the things that I've learned. If you don't communicate, they communicate for you. So what I did as a leader, I worked very closely with HR. It's very hard for me as a leader. It's hard for HR too, but I can tell you this, kudos to all you HR leaders out there, because, I couldn't have led a sales transformation to the level that we did over 2 years, when a time when the business was soft, without HR being a real business partner. So, we know HR leaders are doing everything they can to communicate with employees and help them think about their careers. At the same time, they're also worried about what comes next for themselves. So how is HR changing, and how will it impact me? They come up to us at these events, and there's a real uncertainty there. So Melanie, if you will, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about how HR leaders can think about their own personal development.
Yeah, thanks, Russell. And just want to take a really quick moment to reflect on something that we don't often do, which is you, the HR team. You know, as leaders, you spend so much time caring for everyone in your organization. You navigate change, you help them with uncertainty, you literally support everyone else every day. But how often do you actually stop and take a pause and check in with yourself? And with that, we actually want to move to a final poll just to see what you might be doing for yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Melanie. So you'll see the poll live, and this again is a single choice answer. So you might be doing multiple things, but what are you doing that's the most impactful and incorporated into your life? We know it's quite difficult when you're being pulled in a ton of different directions to find some time for some development. All right, we're getting to about 50%, and Russell and I have a preview of what what the results are before we're sharing it with the rest of the team. So that's why you hear us gasping. Not really. It's not terribly surprising, but I am going to now end the poll and share the results. All right, Melanie, what do you think?
Wow. No, it's really, first off, thank you for responding. This is fantastic. And it's really, really, really nice to see that you're actually trying, that you're trying to focus on your self-care, you're trying to focus on growth, but there's always that but, right? Actively upskilling, that's fantastic. Learning continuously is always something that's needed for all of us. We all think we know everything, but we don't. But it's just really good to see this big shift, if you will, of the results on here. The one which I'm sure a lot didn't answer, but have not had the time or the energy to focus on at all, which is something that is unfortunate. We know that is part of all of our lives every day, and really trying to make space for that is key to our own well-being. And honestly, the better we feel, I think the more effective we can be in our jobs as well. You know, look, the bottom line, this is a very, very critical time. You can always go into your, get it done mode like we always do. We just focus and drive and get it done. But these are extreme scenarios, and things are moving faster and faster, and the chaos is becoming more chaotic and more chaotic. And the best thing you can do is take a pause and then have a chat. And have a chat with an independent third party who can really help you think through what you're going through and give you the support that you need at that time. Russell?
Yes, so self-care and growth, and you feel overwhelmed. Well, before we wrap, I teased you at the beginning of this session. We want to leave you with something very meaningful. So at LHH, we know HR professionals are constantly giving, supporting others, steadying the ship, but who's supporting you? Well, that's why we're offering each of you today, each exclusive attendee here today, a complimentary month of coaching through Ezra, our digital coaching platform. So this isn't a sales pitch, it's a genuine offering because we believe HR deserves to feel as supported and equipped as the people they're always supporting. So here's the truth. This coaching could be life-changing in a time where human connection means more than it ever has, giving yourself the space to be heard, to reflect, to grow. Not just, it's not just helpful, it's essential. Most of all, you deserve it. So you've carried so much, let someone carry you for a moment. You'll receive a follow-up email with a registration link. So please don't hesitate to take advantage of that. You can scan that right there. So Kate?
Yeah, thanks, Russell. That's an exciting gift. So I'm going to move into Q&A. Let me take these slides down so we can just have our Brady Bunch moment here. All right, let us go to the Q&A. Greg, I'm going to send one over to you to kick us off. What role do you see frontline and mid-level managers playing in either stabilizing or destabilizing a workforce during disruption, and what kind of support do they need right now?
Great question. So first off, I would say it's essential. Critically part of the strategy is empowering managers to be leading with empathy. So middle managers, that's the pressure valve. Frontline managers within an organization. We really need to make sure that these people are equipped and trained with the tools, but also the permission to be able to lead with a sense of vulnerability, and be able to hold space for their team. So yes, I think, the first reactions and in critical strategies has a lot to do with top down, but it's really trust over the long term is going to be built in really more day-to-day interactions. That frontline group, that middle management group with buy-in that is prepared with the training. So clear messaging, opportunities and understanding where and how they can communicate, again, to be able to reach not just a specific party line that from the organization, but actually open themselves to a sense of vulnerability to be able to have a communication. So yes, that's how I would see how frontline managers would actually be part of that stabilization and staying away from the destabilization in a time like this.
Yep, thanks. That makes sense. This next one I'm going to send is what alternatives to layoffs, reductions in force are HR leaders considering during these times of transformation and cost reduction?
Very well, thank you, Kate. I think there are many alternatives actually now, and we know that many companies think about that creatively as well. I just want to give you one example first, which was quite surprising to me. I was conducting probably about 200 interviews with people who stayed in a tech company that had a big layoff. And what I learned is that one of the questions we asked of people, are you expecting this sort of disruptions happening often, or you think we should sort of never have restructuring programs? And it's interesting that almost 90% said, yes, we actually expect them to happen, which was a big aha moment because the leadership didn't think that will be the response. But the next thing was, okay, but you didn't do it too well. And then the question was, why not too well? And number one suggestion was, help me redeploy, help people who are there, help them redeploy. And interestingly, the reason why was not because they cared that much about that people, but selfish reasons that they lose the knowledge from the organization when people leave, exit, especially in special areas, and people who stay have to do the work. So they said that number one ask is help them redeploy and retrain, because also they observed that many people actually were sort of rehired in some shape or form, and some of them was contracting, for example, or just back within a year. So there are ways of doing things, of managing things better, especially as we know that the pace of change are going to accelerate. So this sort of hiring-firing loop may not work always in an optimal way. So for me, the biggest solution here is the internal mobility and the culture of internal mobility, and doing that ahead of that. There was also a question, I think, in the Q&A, which is linked to that, and what is the difference between those meta skills and career skills, and let's say the timeless skills? Because those meta career skills, this is what you need to develop in order to actually build that internal mobility. So what the difference is, the timeless skills are skills that are needed for the job. And they're needed for the job they're doing now. It could be the leadership, communication, interpersonal, all these things. The meta skills are skills that are not directly needed for the job, but needed for a successful career. What are the examples, right? There are things, for example, as knowing the market demands, sensing skills, understanding what's happening beyond your current world. There is also a skill set linked to locus of control, whether people actually feel that they can impact their career or not. There are obviously learning agility skills, adaptability, proactive behaviors, and all those things. I also want to make a point that we study that a lot. So we actually look at what helps people stay employable, and also what helps people find fulfilling careers. And these are all these meta skills that actually matter more than skills of the day, definitely, and some of the timeless skills as well. So hopefully that answers both questions.
Yeah, it really does. Thank you so much. All right, let me tag Melanie on this one. how can we support staff with career resilience when progression opportunities may be more limited and future career uncertainty?
Oh, good one. When progression is not certain, so meaning there might not be other jobs or higher level jobs, the best thing that we see best practices in is when companies expand the dialogue as to what progression means. It does not always mean promotion. It could mean you stay in your role and grow. You take on additional responsibility. It means you stay in your role and you take a gig assignment in a different group to see if you like that role. Maybe that's something you progress to one day. Definitely there is that vertical promotion and that usual ladder that we all remember. But another new thing too, with all of these new ways to look at yourself and understand what it is you really, really like to do at work, some people are finding completely new roles. You know, they've been in finance for 20 years and they do it well. But do they still love it? You know, maybe they want to take Kate's job. Maybe they want to go into marketing. So maybe they will look at a role that might not be where they are today just to take a step down so they can get into that new line and grow there. It's amazing how many people are just feeling so much more fulfilled when they're in a role that they love to do, and they're willing to take those type of changes to move. So in companies where that progression, that next step isn't there, I would definitely recommend reframing that conversation. When you reframe that conversation, it equally is showing the organization is listening, hence feeding that down to the manager level, the key population that Greg and Isabella have both been talking about. And they then become stewards of their people, of their talent, and can help this move along. So it becomes a really nice talent cycle, if you will. And all of this helps with that resilience, that preparation, that readiness to get them moved into that next mindset to change their career in the way they want to.
Yep, thank you so much. There's a couple more that I maybe will bucket together. What training would you recommend for HR professionals to upskill in? And then there's another one talking about being open to transferring to a different role, but not having the resume, not getting callbacks. And I know we have a recruitment solutions part of our business. We have General Assembly, which does upskilling, reskilling. So there is answers out there, but I wanted to throw it to the panel. Is there anything, just quick takeaways about kind of what's the first step? Of course, do the coaching we just sent you, but anything else?
One quick thing I'll say actually is to the skills, you know, the point that, you know, what I match doesn't go to the other roles. I think, well, I should say, I know a lot of companies are switching from that job responsibility to what skills make someone successful in that role. You don't have to go straight line. I have these 5 skills, therefore these are the 5 things on the resume or on the job description, but really focusing on what you bring to the table versus the group you're in today really can help expand a company's pipeline of talent if they focus on a different set of data points for open roles.
You know, I can build on that a little bit, is also just to recognize is that in any poll of hiring managers and people in management positions, you know, making determinations of how, you know, people, you know, come into a different, you know, work groups within the organization. If you ever ask the question, what would be the choice that you're looking for? Someone that matches the specific chills for the job or the right person for the work group? It is always the right person, the person who is right to do the job. Skills can be taught. You can't create someone who's they're not. So this is a fundamental shift, and this is what's happening. And Isabella was talking about this. We are entering into a significant point of career pivoting. So someone had mentioned, you know, like, oh, well, you know, maybe I'm trying to do this, but I'm not getting, you know, messages back or, you know, that way. It's really just to be able to understand is that there is a fundamental change and focus specifically on why you are the right person for this job, right? Because you have the right motivation, because you have the right ideas, because you match with the work groups, right? These are the shifts that have been going on right now. So changing how we manage our careers internally or externally, as you're looking to change organizations, these are the fundamental shifts, and these rules have really changed significantly. We've actually been developing technology to be able to look at someone not from a chronological work history, but from really the intrinsic values of the human being. And then and then look at a skills match and what can you use upskilling and reskilling to be able to apply yourself. because the world is hungry for the people who are right for the job, right? Not necessarily someone that has come from a career trajectory, because many times these trajectories aren't matching any longer. So understand that. So I understand, yes, changing your career can be, there's challenges to it, but we are really in an era where this is being done more, and actually in the future may actually be the norm. So, I would just kind of add that to that question.
Yeah, I actually also wanted to share a couple of perspectives. So there were two questions: what skills HR need to learn now, and then there is another one about applying and trying to pivoting. First, about building on what Melanie and Greg said about pivoting, there also first an acknowledgement from my side that it is difficult, and we know that because hiring managers and HR communities, they do differ as well. Some of them already moved to that more skills-based or right person for the job approach. Others do not. There's also another interesting phenomenon we see now with AI, is that HR also are overwhelmed with the amount of CVs that come their way, and those CVs do not stand out anymore because they already adjusted to the requirements of the role. So they all look amazing, but obviously it's not real, right? So we appreciate that can be a challenge from the HR side as well. So how can you stand out? And for that, I mean, the best thing that helped in all times was networking and understanding what the actual needs of the team is, or the hiring manager is, what the company is looking for, what is the culture, to be able to stand out of the crowd, from the crowd. But I just say that probably that AI piece is making it a little bit more difficult. At the same time, I'm also optimistic because moving forward, there are more and more new jobs. Nobody has ever done that, so nobody will have experience. And this is your chance to actually do something different and explain why you will be the best person to take that. Now, on the question of HR skills, I think I would say two things. One is the job of HR in general is changing also a lot, because a lot of it can be impacted by AI. Of course, not surprisingly, I would recommend you to learn AI. The best way to learn AI is actually doing it, using it daily, as we've been doing in the team. Of course, product and innovation, and I'm working with technology now. We must do that; it's part of our job. But we would recommend everybody to do that. It's mind-blowing. It's good fun, but also it's what increases your own employability in the space. So you know what you can do. Now, the other part is focusing on the areas of HR that are least replaceable by AI. What are the elements of your current job, or what's happening in the organization? For example, culture change that will hardly be ever replaced by HR, by AI, and will always stay in HR. And any other more strategic topics that you can take on as projects or as anything else, just to learn it. The other data point I wanted to share with you, which I was surprised to hear, but out of all our LHH career transition candidates, of course, that's including some HR, but lots of other positions as well. 72% was started to use AI only after job loss. So that means that before that, they were just thinking that's not something that will ever impact them. We see the big trends that people tend to underestimate the impact of AI. I'm pretty sure none of you do that, but just to say that the AI piece is very, very important, and we see that it's making the difference in people's lives as we speak, and in chat community as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Izza. That's a great place to wrap up. Russell, you want to take us out?
Yeah, thank you. Just first of all, I just want to say thank you again, Kate, to you for producing this, Mel, Greg, Izza, my colleagues for joining me here, and then to the leaders on this call. I just want to thank you again for showing up, not just for this conversation, but for your teams, your organizations, and your people. And we know that leading through disruption is never easy, but you don't have to do it alone. So after the session, you're going to receive a follow-up email with a few valuable resources. So you'll get a recording of today's webinar in case you want to revisit this or want to share it with any of your colleagues. You're going to get a set of key takeaways from today's conversations to keep the insights actionable. And you're going to get an invitation to join the LHH private networking group. So this is a global community of about 80,000 professionals right now who share questions, resources, daily insights. If you've been looking for your people, they're there. That's where you can find them. So we hope you join that. Thank you all for being part of this community. Thank you for the work that you do. And most of all, thank you for continuing to lead with clarity, care, and courage in times that test all three. You are clearly, truly making a difference. We appreciate you. So until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.